when you can buy a brand new Kia Rio for just $9,900. No games, no gimmicks. Everybody qualifies for that price.
Paramount Kia Hickory, ParamountKia.com.
The city of Charlotte has suffered its first homicide of the new year, and it didn't take long.
Right now, CMPD is searching for a man accused of murdering a UNC Charlotte professor.
2 homicides in a matter of hours.
The number of killings in Charlotte is rising sharply.
I miss just seeing his face, hearing his voice.
Part of me's gone. The pain is, you can't describe it.
How did we get here, and how do we save the next victim?
It's so much more than just a number.
We're giving out hope. We're letting people know we love them.
This is Homicide and Hope,
a WBTV On Your Side community conversation. Good evening, and thank you for joining us tonight. I'm Brigida Mack.
And I'm Jamie Bowl. The city of Charlotte is on pace for the highest number of homicides the city has seen in a long time. And in each case, they are men, women, children, husbands, wives, sisters, and brothers who are gone because of violent crime.
So far this year, 76 people have been killed due to violent crimes in Charlotte. That's 76 people who are now forever gone. Their families left behind to cope with the fact they will never see them again. In fact, the city is on pace to have 91 homicides in 2017. And as you can see on your screen now, that is more than any year in the past decade. The numbers may be astonishing, but our community conversation tonight isn't just focused on the statistics.
No, it's about finding hope. We are looking closer into what community leaders, courts, and police are doing to identify and remedy the problems that are causing violent crimes and homicides in our community. And it starts at the top. WBTV's Colleen Harry sat down with Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Chief Kurt Putney one-on-one. They talked about the roots of crime and the honest conversation that needs to happen to curb this troubling trend.
There's a feeling.
Frustration, anger, hopelessness, and loss.
When more are lost, when the number keeps rising.
And I hate talking about them as a number because these are lives lost. We're meeting with the families of people who have just lost family members. So it's so much more than just a number.
Kurt Putney has been chief of Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police since 2015. But this year,
we're seizing guns. We've seized 1,800 guns already. 400 plus of them were stolen.
The city is on track to challenge a distressing statistic. The number of people killed could be as high or even higher than 2005, when there were 85 homicides. It was even worse decades ago when street violence in Charlotte was so deadly, the killings seemed constant.
Back in the early 90s, where we were talking about cocaine, crack cocaine in particular, driving a lot of the homicides over turf and drug trade. That's not the same case right now.
This year, more than 70 people have been killed so far.
So despite that number, we're not looking at like a public safety issue in terms of gangs,
No.
and drug issues.
No, that's not driving it this year. What's driving it right now is those minor disputes that escalate.
Chief Putney says lives are being lost because of arguments, domestic violence, robberies, drugs.
We're not seeing a lot of people talk about what really needs to happen in specific parts of the city to change these outcomes. And a lot of that has to do with race, culture, and hopelessness.
In the homicide so far this year, there is a deeper statistic that should jolt the community.
79% of our victims are black. 75% of our suspects are black. If that were in proportion, we'd be talking about a reduction versus last year. We'd be under 45 homicides overall.
Black on black crime that the chief says needs to be talked about.
We whisper about it. We don't do much about it, though, as far as action. What I'll tell you is, people get upset when I say that, but it's the truth.
There's crime everywhere, but Chief Putney says street crime is hitting minority communities hard, and it's leading to homicides.
And I talk about culture because machismo, this manhood concept out of control, is driving some of it too. You can't back down, so you're going to charge forward, and you don't have the courage to do so as a man should, and you're grabbing a weapon and solving minor conflicts by taking a life.
officers are on the lookout for repeat offenders. The police department is hoping its community empowerment initiative in certain neighborhoods to give people whatever help they need will reduce killings. The thinking is heal families now, prevent a homicide later.
Nobody wants to say I have a violent community, I have a violent neighborhood, but I'm proud that communities like Lakewood are saying, hey, we want to change outcomes, we want to save lives, because if we do it person by person, family by family, we can make some headway, but this is long-term investment.
In a year where statistics show most homicide victims knew their killer, the chief says the community needs to pay attention to the underlying factors.
And what we're not talking about too is around accountability is responsibility. We need parents to step up and be good parents.
The question is, will this year's losses teach the city lasting lessons so this feeling so far this year won't come back again?
And that is not the future that Charlotte deserves. We deserve much better, but we all need to come together and do our part to make that happen.
A candid conversation with the police chief. Now, police tell WBTV that so far in 2017, around 60% of the homicide cases in the city have been cleared. They have their suspect. Police say detectives are working hard on each case, but with the increase in homicides this year, along with other crimes in their caseload, detectives have their hands full.
When you come to homicide, it has to be a calling for you, and you have to know that you're in store for some hazardous duty.
Now, Colleen learned more about how detectives investigate these violent crimes, and she'll detail that coming up in the next hour of our community conversation, which you can see on our sister channel on Bounce TV. You'll also be able to stream it live on WBTV.com and the WBTV News app. Brigida?
Jamie, for some families, these cases are not cleared, and until they are, closure is all but impossible. David McClendon's mother has lived that nightmare every day since her son was found dead inside his Charlotte home last year. Detectives tell our Sarah Blake Morgan they have no idea who is responsible.
I miss just seeing his face, hearing his voice.
Inside a living room in Anson County,
it's on my mind every day.
A family gathered to talk about their missing piece.
I just miss him so much.
Everyone here misses David McClendon, but no one feels his void more than his mother, Vivian.
Every day. It's not a day don't pass. I don't think about my son. I wake up, I lay down, I get up.
It was July 24th, 2016. Vivian couldn't reach her son for days, so she drove to his house on Prescott Court in North Charlotte.
And I couldn't get the door open. And then when I finally went around, found him. I found him in his place on the floor.
He was inside of his home alone, and it was a couple of days before he was located. So we were already behind the ball starting out from the 911 call.
Detective Shayna Eisenhower and other CMPD investigators spent hours processing the 32-year-old's home, trying to pinpoint who was responsible.
There are no witnesses. So there's nobody to interview to try to obtain more information. All the information that we get has to come from the things that we collected from the scene.
David was found with apparent trauma. That is all CMPD will release. No witnesses ever came forward, and so far, there are no leads.
We have nothing right now.
What I want to know, what happened to my child?
The unknown has been excruciating for Vivian.
I know it won't bring him back, but it'll give me closer to get justice for him.
When they see my phone number pop up on their phones, they're always expecting good news, and I haven't been able to give them good news yet.
This detective and this family both know someone out there knows what happened to David. They just need that someone to come out of the shadows.
I'm gonna find out what happened to you, baby. I'm gonna find out.
It's just incredible to watch. You can see how desperate that family is for answers. If you know anything about what happened to David McClendon, we are urging you to call Crime Stoppers immediately. The number there at the bottom of your screen, 704-334-1600. Remember, you don't have to leave your name, and you could get a reward. Jamie?
Brigida, as we've seen over the past year, anyone at any age can lose their life to this violence. But when you're talking about young people, the concern seems to go to another level. When a young person is killed or is the killer, the shock is magnified. WBTV's Ben Williamson takes a look at two cases this year that highlight a growing concern about violence and our young people.
So part of me's gone. The pain is, you can't describe it.
You go on, but you can't go on, so your car's in drive, but you're not going nowhere.
The Finch family and the Frazier family, they didn't know each other before this year. Many of us didn't know them either. That was until both families lost sons in shootings this past year. 14-year-old Anthony Frazier, shot and killed after coming home from a birthday celebration. 21-year-old Zachary Finch, killed while trying to sell his cell phone.
It wasn't one life taken. Zachary was loved by so many people. It's hundreds of lives.
We talked with Frazier's father several months ago.
All the years I played football and was in the military and had the alpha male guy moments and stuff like that, this just takes the wind out of you.
Anthony Frazier is one of two victims between the ages of 14 and 17 to be killed this year. Zachary Finch, one of 17 victims between the ages of 18 and 24 to die in 2017.
From an emotional standpoint, because of the age, obviously it kind of raises the stakes.
Frazier's case shows just how young these victims can be. But when you look at how Zachary Finch was killed, something else jumps out. All three suspects in the case, all younger than 17 years old.
Don't understand how at 15 you can have no regard for human life, how you can have so much hatred.
Just as concerning for police.
To try and find out specifically, where these guns are coming from. Obviously with the ages specifically 14, 17, and anything under 21, you always have to ask yourself, how these individuals, acquiring guns. So far in 2017, 4 teens ages 14 to 17 and 29 teens ages 18 to 24 have been arrested in murder cases. Within 1 second, they've changed the lives of a victim, their family, and their own lives.
Although the numbers show that the youth murder rate isn't much different than the past 5-year average, CMPD right now putting more resources than ever into youth diversion programs.
Definitely a real sense of urgency to really look at the underlying reasons.
One of those programs is the Childhood Development and Community Policing Initiative.
I would say we have a youth exposed to violence and trauma problem that most people don't know about. It is really a public epidemic.
Sarah Green has been with the organization for years. They try and intervene with young children after violence hits their family, and the need is great.
For instance, in August, we had 633 families referred.
And people like Greg Jackson.
If everybody did a little bit, nobody would have to do a lot.
He created a community group called Heal Charlotte that focuses on kids through camps and community events for a positive experience.
And we need to create these cycles where there's no idle time for you. There's no time for you to sit down and wonder about what's the other side.
All of it in an effort to stop the loss of these smiles. Faces that shouldn't have to ever be remembered through pictures alone.
That we love him and we miss him. But I'm so proud of the young man that he was.
Our Ben Williamson reporting. There are people working hard to make a difference in our community. And if you would like to learn about organizations that are reaching out to the youth, we have the full interview with the creator of Heal Charlotte and with Sarah Green of Child Development and Community Policing. It's right now on WBTV.com.
Coming up in our community conversation.
I'm grateful that I went through the experience that I went through because it has gotten me in the place I am today.
Putting faces to the names of those lost to violence and giving their families a sense of hope and love. When we return, how grassroots efforts are helping families move forward.
Always been said that the inmates allow us to work there because we're outnumbered.
It's a desperate cry for help from state prison staff after 2 of their colleagues were recently killed in a prison break attempt.
You can't do the same job with less bodies and do it effectively, not when you're dealing with dangerous people.
Prison workers tell WBTV why they feel like it's only a matter of time before the next escape attempt is successful. WBTV investigates the manpower challenge facing our state prisons. Monday on WBTV News at 6.
At Toyota of North Charlotte and Huntersville, we want to help.
The following is a special presentation by WBTV.
Drive a new Tacoma SR5 Double Cab for only $199 a month, and you can see all of our big city low prices on our internet specials page. Go to toyotaofnorthcharlotte.com.
At Longhorn, step into wood, stone, steak. Don't prepare a meal for yourself. prepare yourself for a meal. Feast on one of Longhorn's steakhouse cuts, 12-ounce New York strip, center cut Flo's filet for a limited time 14-ounce Delmonico. The feeling, the flavor, the place. Longhorn Steakhouse. You can't fake steak.
Every stitch is a part of me. All these shapes and designs express our devotion to craftsmanship. I want people to feel our passion when they touch it and when they drive it.
Test drive the CX-5 and experience the details for yourself.
This season, step up to a Stihl. Stihl blowers start at just $139.95, and Stihl chainsaws start at just $179.95. Visit StihlDealers.com.
Look for the tag store-wide inventory blowout. Ends Monday at 6. Rug and Home.
Make rush hour an adrenaline rush with the 2017 Nissan Altima. Now with Nissan Intelligent Mobility, featuring automatic emergency braking that can help you stop safely and keep you out of a jam. Automatic emergency braking, now on Nissan Altima and Sentra. Take on today and save up to $4,800 on Altima, or save up to $10,760 on select models.
Welcome back to Homicide and Hope. Someone from the Homicide team at the District Attorney's Office responds to every single scene.
The increased violence means more cases, more families to meet, more work on everyone. We welcome Sharon Smith now, who is looking at the impact tonight on justice. Sharon, are we starting to see an effect yet in court?
Brigitte, I would say they're managing it. You've got 10 people on the Homicide team, 76 cases so far this year, and then plus all the pending cases, of course. We know the violence may take seconds, but each murder can take up to 2 years to resolve in court.
Assistant district attorneys in Charlotte never travel light. They head to court with cases several thousand pages deep.
This is a fairly big file.
ADA Anna Green showed us inside her office reams of paper, dozens of discs, and one family left behind.
When you first start to interact with a family, we buy all into helping them through this process.
It's their job to understand victim, suspect, circumstance deeply and apply the law evenly, no matter how many cases come through the door. They must be fair, consistent, and efficiently detail-driven.
Shooter, I'd say.
This roundtable of police and prosecutors is part of the checks and balances. It started several years ago when the homicide rate was lower. The collaboration helps even more now with more cases to examine.
We did that because we wanted to make sure that a person committing the same crime with the same type of evidence is treated fairly, whoever they are. We also did that because it's a way to manage cases coming through the door, what we do with them, how long it takes us to do that with them, and what the outcome is, so we can track our results as we go.
And when it comes to tracking homicides as a community, team leader Bill Stetzer offers this perspective.
Our highest year in Mecklenburg County history was 129 murders in 1993.
The height of the crack war, and the population was around 500,000, making the per capita murder rate around 26. Now the population is much larger, the per capita rate much lower. Still, Stetzer says the point doesn't diminish the problem. Killings are up, each one is bad.
And things go from anger to death much faster than they should, and I think that's a part of it.
Some weeks are worse than others.
Just last week, I was called out to 4 different homicide scenes. You are, when you do something like that, you are meeting people at the beginning, what is truly a lifelong tragedy.
One of those cases for Spencer Merriweather involved Justin Reed, gunned down during a robbery 2 years ago. His killer just started a 30-year prison sentence. After court, Merriweather and the family started to debrief in private.
Not very long after that, we heard a knock on the door, and we were told by courthouse staff that the mother of the assailant, mother of the defendant, wanted to ask permission to apologize on behalf of that family to the victim's family. They welcomed her in, and at that point, before she could even get the words out, they surrounded her with hugs.
We had to relieve ourselves of resentment, of anger, of that burden. We will not be victimized twice.
Ollie Reed was among the family members who offered forgiveness that day. Justin was his nephew.
Like we always told him, everybody's not your friend. You know, and the choices that he made, the people that he associated with, the things that he did were a part of the outcome. That was a part of the outcome.
But you loved him so much
anyway. Oh, I loved him. I loved him like he was my own child.
The reward is watching how some of their homicide families push through the anger and loss.
There's never been a moment where that hasn't astounded me.
They see it time and time again.
Everyone on that team would tell you this work is their passion, and the workload has grown even without this year's spike. For example, now in Charlotte, every responding officer should have a body camera on, which could mean 100 hours of footage from a big scene. So the homicide team has added a week to each case just to review that film.
Sharon, thank you. Way before anyone winds up in a courtroom, victims of violent crime are sent to the emergency room. I talked with two doctors from Carolina's Medical Center, including the emergency department's chief of trauma. We spoke at length about what happens when a victim is rushed to the hospital, as well as the impact all of these cases have on its staff.
We take a pause. We make sure we know the person's name. Everybody involved in the care takes a moment to understand, to contemplate that this was a life that was lost.
That was Dr. Emily McNeil talking about how they deal with a situation once they have realized that they cannot save a patient. Coming up later in our community conversation over on Bounce TV, you will learn more from inside the emergency department, also known as the ED. Hear how these doctors are looking at the bigger picture of how to solve the problems at the root of violence. Jamie?
Well, Brigida, solutions are hard to come by. Every year, dozens of people are killed in Charlotte. It means dozens of families are left to grapple with the question of, what do I do now? Well, some use their experience of loss to help others who are going through the same thing. WBTV's Steve Crump shows us how grassroots organizations are there for those who may not know who to turn to.
We try to put them in order as best we can, but these are people. All of them.
Focusing on lives lost to violent crimes is an unbridled passion for Judy Williams. She heads up Mothers of Murdered Offspring, better known as MOMO, and this photographic tapestry of tragedy honors the departed.
We want to put a face on the pain that comes with the loss of every loved one.
This mosaic of faces, mostly black and clearly young, all share the common thread of dying too soon.
Violence starts in the mind. And if we don't affect the mind, nothing changes.
24 years ago, this organization started with its signature candlelight vigils and balloon releases. Like the victims they remember, these rituals number in the hundreds.
We're giving out hope. We're letting people know we love them.
Community advocate Robbie Harrison has been on the receiving end of that hope and love.
I'm grateful that I went through the experience that I went through because it has gotten me in the place I am today.
Her son, Peyton Robinson, was killed back in the 1980s, and his face is among the more than 700 images making up the MOMO display. His mother's anger has been transformed into positive energy by lending support to the activities carried out by this community organization.
The losing of my child brought me to a different place and a better place that I would be in today had I not gone through.
Talk to experts and they'll tell you that grassroots organizations do make a difference as it relates to curbing violence. On one hand, they educate and engage the community, and on the flip side, their exercises and outreach provide moments of prevention.
We need those grassroots organizations to come out to support us.
Retired CMPD Detective Gary McFadden recalls how the nation's crack epidemic during the 1980s pushed the local homicide rate well beyond 100. During recent years, figures cut in half, but An alarming trend is underway when you consider the following numbers. Last year, Charlotte recorded 67 homicides, but for the first 9 months of this year, the number was 69.
We haven't got to the point of where we are telling people how to solve or settle their differences.
We've got to find ways to sit and talk things out.
Successful conflict resolution may reduce the number of new headshots, and these pages with telling messages are keeping tabs on the deaths from year to year.
The jails being full and running over shows us that people don't get away with it.
As Judy Williams continues finding, honoring, and working, she offers this realization by contending that homicide leads to two places: jail for the assailant and the cemetery for victims of these heinous crimes.
Steve Crump reporting for us. You can learn more about the mission of Mothers of Murdered Offspring and other groups. Just visit WBTV.com/conversation.
Grassroots organizations aren't the only ones stepping up to the plate to help families who lose loved ones. Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department created the Homicide Support Group shortly after the murder of Jerron McGill 8 years ago. During the monthly meetings, members have access to homicide detectives and the DA's office. And when the unimaginable happens, they go to homicide scenes alongside the investigators.
I won't say it gets easy, but it gets it becomes manageable. You manage it because death of a child is something you never get over.
Every member of the Homicide Support Group has lost a family member to violent crime in our community. We have much more coming up on how this group helps others as our community conversation continues over on Bounce TV. This wraps up the first half hour of Homicide and Hope, a WBTV community conversation. But we have so much more coming up over on Bounce and live streaming online.
Yeah, you want to keep it right here. We have invited several people from across Charlotte for real discussions about violent crimes and their efforts to educate others to prevent homicides. We're talking to people from different neighborhoods who have different roles in our community.
So you can switch over to Bounce TV or open WBTV.com, the WBTV News app, or WBTV on Facebook to watch.
Thank you for watching. We'll see you over on Bounce TV in just a few moments.
The following is a special presentation by WBTV News. On Your Side, Community Conversation, Homicide and Hope.
Hyundai has an all-wheel drive SUV for every stage of your life. Urban adventure? That's Tucson. Taking that next step? Check out the Santa Fe Sport. Full-time chauffeuring? Your 7-passenger Santa Fe awaits. And with America's best warranty, whichever stage you're in.
You just saved me from getting a minivan. Give him some love.
Better is the reason to buy Hyundai. And now for a limited time, you can lease a 2017 Tucson for just $129 a month. or get $4,000 in total savings. Hurry in today.